Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I think for as all good things, one needs to wait for good things to happen. Today, I think what we're trying to address here is one of the topics, that is to heart of any climate change or climate action regime. And that's the climate action, in the Pacific Islands, the small island states, the resilience. So we've got a few members here. A few members are still trying to make through, the crowds here, trying to get their way in. But with time, we believe that we'll get it started. So what I'm going to do now is just, we've got excellent panelists here as well for the roundtable discussion. So we've got Naveen Pawar, who has worked extensively in the Pacific Islands. We've got Dipti, who has dealt with vulnerability, gender equality issues in the Pacific Islands. And then we've got Ian from Vanuatu, who is a part of the delegation as well. I'll let each of the speakers introduce themselves. As to myself, I'm Kamish Iyer. I'm Business Development Director for STX. In STX, we do believe that we should start with the most vulnerable topic in this arena. And what we are trying to do here is give that platform to vulnerable states so that this topic actually can receive the utmost attention, not only in terms of climate finance, but also in terms of, policies and under Article 6 that can actually accelerate this bit. If I can ask Dipti to go first.
Of course. Thank you so much, Kamesh, for that. My name is Deepthi. I am most passionate about the intersection of gender, climate change, and also advancing gender equality and social inclusion within climate initiatives. And I guess mainly my passion, or my main aim, I guess, is to ensure that the needs of the most vulnerable, the most marginalized, including women, children, other marginalized groups, are met and addressed in any climate policy or initiative to make sure that we don't leave anyone behind and we're not doing more harm than good when taking any action, policy, program, project, etc. Yeah.
Thank you. Ian, you want to?
Good morning. My name is Ian Yeset. I come from Vanuatu. I work with the Department of Energy. This is under the Ministry of Climate Change in Vanuatu. I work with various projects in Vanuatu, mainly in terms of climate change mitigation. I've worked together with Naveen in some policy and in Vanuatu that the government has requested. Currently, I'm working with Article 6.2 with the Swiss government, coordinating what's happening in ground, and also plus coordinating various mitigation projects, solar renewable project and others, for the betterment of our task in achieving our NDCs.
That's
it's first.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Naveen Kumar Pawar. I'm a director with the Neo Climate Solution based in India, and working with most of the Pacific Island countries and Africa, advising them on climate change mitigation strategies, policies, and NDC implementation now. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner.
right. We'll keep the format in a very lucid discussion format. We don't want to make this too hectic. I'm probably going to take the seat there. So, if I have to put this in a nutshell, Ian, what do you think is the current landscape or the current challenges that in the Pacific Islands, like a country like Vanuatu faces? Can you give us some idea?
Thank you. It's a good question. We, ever since we've started on this initiative, As all countries, we've got a lot of challenges, and being small island states, I think one of the main challenges that we face is basically, firstly, the financial constraints that we have, and that is echoed around a lot of reports that we've been doing with the help of our consultants. And the other aspect that I can put inside is I think it's the capacity. It's the capacity that internally we have. So a lot of times we rely on experts from outside to help us in all aspects from beginning right sometimes to the end. So I think these are the two most areas that for me, as I've been working together for for some years, I think these are the main areas that we need to focus on, apart from others that maybe not too much as these two.
Thank you. And to this regard, Dipti, what are your views in how, to address these challenges from your viewpoint in terms of gender and, empowerment? What are the challenges you see in this arena?
No, I think Ian made a good point there about capacity, right? I think to kind of make sure that you are including gender considerations, you are including these social inclusion considerations, you kind of need to have the capacity to know how to do that, And also I think that it's challenging because it's, I guess, a more newer point of contention when looking at climate change initiatives specifically, right? So I guess getting people on board with saying that, yes, this is important, like a one-size-fits-all policy is not going to work. Especially, like, as we spoke about, the Pacific Islands have their own unique set of vulnerabilities, and those are not manifested equally on all groups that are present in an island or in a community. So you really kind of need to understand that people will have different needs, or people will experience these vulnerabilities differently. So to address that takes kind of a unique and kind of very systematic process to ensure that you're addressing problems and not creating more inequality or kind of perpetuating existing power structures that may exist, So it takes a lot of kind of prior thinking. Sex disaggregated data is really important, and that's something that's lacking in a lot of developing countries, including the Pacific. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. If I move to Naveen, chair this one. Naveen, you've been a project developer in this region for quite some time. So, have you seen these challenges slowly overcome, or where do you see it stand? Like, where is the status quo at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Kamesh. So, working in the Pacific, it's a kind of journey over a decade now, and we have gone through so many phases over the period of time. And like Ian and Deepti pointed out, there are inherent challenges in the due to some cultural challenges and how the world looks to the Pacific Island countries. So, what happened so far? The development as it was supposed to be happen, it didn't happen due to. It's not about the intention. It is about how the policies has been made, how it's been implemented. So the idea was initially the development partners and the governments. So most of these Pacific Island countries were getting the government grants from the development partners, and there was some lack of accountability. I wouldn't say it's lack of accountability, but it's lack of direction, because most of the development partners or the countries, they come up with their own agenda. So integrating, like Deepti mentioned, integration of different or diversified vulnerable groups into the decision making, that was something lacking. But now it's been, since so many things government is doing, specifically in Vanuatu, we have changed. We have seen the transformational change over the period of time. Now, more focus has given to the private sector. Private sector not only for investment, but also in the overall development of the country. So I'm seeing this as a positive change in different island countries.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's really encouraging, right? I mean, that one, the first thing to any solution is identifying the problem. And I can see that from a policy angle, right, to, a stakeholder management angle of, vulnerable communities as well, including gender equality, to a project basis, that's nicely flowing. If you can, so we are in the COP at the moment. So my question goes to Ian more like, where do you see, you said you're working closely with the Swiss government on Article 6.2. So do you have, what kind of initiatives are currently being done to actually promote this under Article 6.2? Do you have any examples for us?
Thank you. We have recently, I think, mid this year, we started the first one. We used to do it for the renewable energy, solar renewable home systems, and we've commenced that. Although we started, but as I mentioned, the capacity is quite small. We're trying to move into other sectors in terms of biofuel, biogas, and all this. But as I mentioned, we're still trying to push this through. As the things I mentioned earlier, that we lack them. We depend mostly on assistance from the outside, from Naveen and the team, to help us though. But I think this far as we can go. And from this scope, we were trying to maybe sit down with Swiss, see how we can progress faster. And this is some of the things that we're planning to achieve. Since this week will be the start on next week, so hopefully we can get through some of the things move forward by the end of this COP.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds very encouraging to what you're doing. But is there anything you also are pursuing under 6.4 as in, or it's just more focused towards 6.2 at the moment?
Currently we're focusing more on the 6.2. For 6.4, we still haven't touched into. I think in terms of institutional arrangement, we're still working on that. Hopefully that can be finalized by next year, and then maybe we're planning on setting that before we move on into 6.4, as it is more broad and it's more work to be done on that.
Thank you. Dipti, in terms of, let's say, stakeholder management, with the policies around 6.2, where do you see these countries heading, right? So what kind of policies do you think would actually help?
I think it's really great to see that a lot of Pacific Island countries are starting to talk about drafting a specific gender and climate change policy. And I need to kind of clarify that gender doesn't just mean gender. It's also inclusive of other vulnerabilities, other marginalized groups. So things like ability level, access, and other, again, vulnerabilities, just not just about women, right? So it's inclusive of all these different social kind of facets and how people exist in a society. And I think having a specific gender and climate change policy, or ensuring that gender equality and social inclusion is kind of integrated into all these climate policies, is a really positive thing, right? It's making sure that the needs of the most vulnerable are adequately met and we're not leaving anyone behind. So that's kind of the direction I see that going in, definitely.
Oh, nice. And in terms of a time frame, do you see that, because we're talking of a topic that should have been addressed before.
Definitely, yes.
So in terms of time frame, do you think that this is achievable given the kind of engagement that you have with the communities? You think this can be pulled up and people on the ground are excited?
I definitely think so, because I think it's, as you said, it's not a new thing per se in terms of making sure that everyone's needs are met, right? Now that we have this platform, we're saying that yes, everyone's needs are important. We need to make sure. I think that's getting people excited and making sure that wanting to advocate for each other's needs. And definitely, I think it may not be a smooth linear process. And we can't say in 10 years we're going to make sure that every single climate policy is going to be gender inclusive, social inclusive, but I think it is a great start and a stepping stone towards the future.
Right. And if I have to combine, I'll put the difficult question to Naveen now. So if you have to combine the policy and the stakeholder management, Naveen, Do you have any project examples that actually hit both these targets?
Thank you, Gamesh, and thanks for asking a difficult question. So I'll just add on something which Ayan has already mentioned about. What we have seen over the period of time that Pacific Island countries, they are most optimistic and they have taken the most stringent action towards implementing all climate change related activities in their countries. So starting now, everyone has their own enhanced NDCs and NDC implementation roadmap. So though most, I think all of the Pacific Island countries, they are net carbon negative countries. So their sink is more than what they emit. Their emission is hardly very, very small to their total emissions. So specific case of Vanuatu is already having their NDC implementation plan for 2030. They want to be carbon neutral from energy sector, which is the only major sector for GHG emission in the country. So they want to make net zero by 2030 by deploying renewable energy in the phases. So that's on the policy side. Again, with the support of UNDP, they have the first digital monitoring, reporting, and verification system that's been implemented in Vanuatu. So specifically for monitoring our climate actions, Vanuatu has already developed their national carbon registry for Article 6.2 as well as the other voluntary mechanisms. So on the policy side, governments are taking more actions. They are ready. Now comes to the second part on specific example. So apart from the example which Ian has given on the renewable energy projects, so there are a couple of community-based projects we are looking into. So one specific project is a household biogas project. So that biogas is not a very new technology. It's been implemented somewhere, but taking that technology to Vanuatu or the Pacific Island country and to the remote communities is still a big challenge. It has all market challenges, behavior challenges, and of course, the investment challenge, because this has to come from the private sector investment. So these are the couple of things which we are still working on. We are hoping with this we can move forward and taking to those technologies to these countries.
Thanks for that. Now that's pretty impressive to hear that not only the NDCs but the digital MRVs in place in the Pacific. In the Pacific. So, Ian, if I have to direct a question at you, how can the private sector help in actually accelerating this transition? Or do you think? I mean, you're doing 6.2, I know, but at the same time, you also said that the private sector has been also, it's opening more to the private sector. So how do you think, that private sector can chip in? Of course, the finance bit is there, but then what do you feel in terms of capacity building or anything else that the private sector can chip in to make sure that Vanuatu as a net exporter of carbon, because the carbon intensity is really low. So how can this actually become a trade-off? Or
Thank you. That's a good question. We've been recently we've been trying to engage private sector, but as mentioned, the information that to get out there for them to be involved is quite small, and so a lot of them, local investors, they are a bit reluctant to come in. But slowly, with this institutional arrangement that we are doing, that should help in terms of getting out how they can come in to help on that. We have started some initiatives this year. We've started some Chinese doing renewable source, and we're trying to buy them in. So this just we need to explain to them what we're doing and how it works, so that they eventually come in through making their own investments. So this is something that we're working on, but it should work out good if we provide more information, awareness on them back home on what we're doing. And this is some of the challenges that we need to work on.
Thank you. I think it's very clear of the challenges a bit. Uh, Now, if I have to couple that with the kind of stakeholder management that you do, Dipti, right? So where do you think the private sector, I mean, and when I talk of the private sector, I mean more the north, not the global south. So where do you think they can chip in? Because I know not everything fits all, right? So you can take the global north model and try to fit it in. It doesn't fit all. It doesn't fit one to one. But what kind of elements do you see that can actually, so the low-hanging fruits in terms of stakeholder management in addressing vulnerabilities, what can go forward?
I think you're so right. Taking a model from the global north and trying to kind of fit it into a society that probably won't have the same values or norms is difficult and probably unproductive to actually achieve the goals of gender equality or social inclusion. I think it's important to kind of listen and learn about like how norms dictate societal roles and how power is held in each society. And you can do that through like consultations. And also, I think you mentioned capacity building, right? We had a workshop about gender and climate change in Tuvalu recently. And I thought more than the actual workshop where we went through different definitions of gender, did all the technical things. The thing that was most impactful with that workshop was that it provided a forum for those who attended the workshop to talk about their views and how they see gender and power manifesting in their society, and that also allowed us to learn about how it's manifested there and how we can use that information to make sure that anything that we do, any action that we take, is addressing the needs that were brought up in this very specific, stakeholder consultation. So I guess it's like a long process that way where you kind of have to go through the consultation, make sure you talk to as many diverse groups as possible to make sure that their needs are brought up in a comfortable manner. Some people may not be comfortable in like a big forum. It might be one-on-one. So I guess there's like a very diversified approach in how to do that. Yeah.
So, do you want to help the audience with some of the outcomes of this? I mean, even I'm interested, but I'm putting it for the audience here. But do you want to share some outcomes on this workshop?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we heard back was that they really appreciated the participants, the fact that we kind of raised this topic within the community, and it kind of allowed them to speak about it together in a way that was less formal and kind of, I guess, engaging that part of this whole section of climate action is kind of an afterthought in some cases, where like, oh yes, we need to include gender, we need to include social aspects, but this kind of allowed everyone to just think of it as the main focus of this workshop, right? And they were talking about all these different outcomes they wanted to achieve through this, drafting a national gender and climate change policy, making sure that gender action is taken throughout the process, not just at the very end. So starting from like proposal right through to monitoring and evaluation, And I guess this forum allowed people to express how important they felt it was as well, and how it should be included more. So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to club questions for Naveen now. So Naveen, if you think of, let's say you're talking of the biogas project, right? So do you think such projects, you can address not only the policy side of things, but also the transaction side, and also, let's say, the stakeholder management side of things? How do you see that as a project developer? It's like, or what kind of challenges you want to overcome? And if you can just highlight some success stories, it'd be great. I know you're there from the Kyoto Protocol era, so putting that.
Yeah. So, it's like working in Pacific, it's entirely different experience. You won't get that kind of experience anywhere in the world because of obfuscation, remoteness of the island that makes difficult to reach any technology. That's one. Second is a lot of experiments have been done in these countries. So some are marginally successful, or some fail. So every failed experiment actually made believe on the technology 10 years back. So biogas is, like I said, biogas is not a new technology, but the initial experiment, the projects which been funded by some particular grants, it's been installed, but it's not working at all. So if people see these kind of experiments and their experience on the experiment, so they have the reluctance. So the behavior change or transformational change which we wanted on the, adopting the cleaner technologies, that's not happened. So the first barrier was to overcome that. So we started initially with a pilot. We implemented in some of the institution as well as the household, and it was difficult to even convince on installing these biogas system for pilot. So one of the director from the Department of Energy in Vanuatu, he came forward and implemented in his own house, and it's been working for almost 6-8 months successfully. So now people are, after seeing the success stories, mostly, it happens like in community. It's spread when somebody else is taking those risks or taking that initiative. So, so far the response on both technical side as well as the behavior side, it's positive, and we are looking forward to expand this into the country. So not only in the Vanuatu or the islands of Vanuatu, but entire Pacific. The issue comes, one is remoteness, like I said, it increases the cost a lot, and the second big is the scale of operation, because these countries has a very small populations. So when you talk about, better than me because you are in the investment and the private sector for so long, how difficult it is to get the financial viability of these projects without any support. And one aspect is implementation of those projects, and second implementation is successful operation over the period of time, because implementation is most easiest part, like physical installation or implementation at one place, but continued operation for 10-15 years for their technical lifetime, that's another challenge. So you have to keep on engaging with all the communities. Capacity building is one of the kind of continuous process which you have to do, because one of the major challenge which Ian is also highlighted is the capacity gap. It's not the capacity gap, so to say, it's like brain drain, because most of the trained people, they move from one place to another place, shift to some other communities. So what happens is you have to keep on looking into building the capacity of individual as well as a community.
Now that's very comprehensive. Thank you so much, Naveen. Ian, if I may ask you, just following up on Naveen's comment on technology. So I'm sure you've identified a host of technologies, like you said, renewable energy, biogas. If you have to encourage private investors, what kind of policy would you actually point towards, saying that Vanuatu is doing this policy or this and this is why you should invest in Vanuatu, because it's going, one, of course, it's going to be, as Naveen pointed out, I understand that since there is not enough population in these islands, but they're still vulnerable, a business case is something that can always happen, right? I mean, it depends, and there's a lot of people out there, including us, wanting to help you. So what kind of policies that you can tell today, like, look, we've got this policy out there, and this is why you should come and invest in Vanuatu. So can you just help us with some of those initiatives that the government is taking care of?
Thank you. For Vanuatu, we have the Department of Energy has set up this efficiency section that addresses mainly the efficiency of any systems that we bring in, and it links with the customs, so all the imports, and it is something that is all well established now. There are penalties that importers go through, and every imports that we come in, it has to meet our efficiency criteria that we've established. So I think this is one of the things that the government itself has set up to address this, the type of technology that we want to use, that it coincides with whatever we're trying to put. Thank you.
So thank you. That's impressive. But now I'll just move that question to Naveen a bit and saying from a other side of things when you're implementing a project. So let's say, what kind of dialogue do you have with the governments here on policies to, overcome that challenge so that the global north or the private sector can actually be more convinced?
Lucky for us, government has already set all the intention to implement these technologies because they have already listed the technology they want in the country in their NDCs and the NDC implementation plan. So intention of government is straightforward. Looking on to the other aspect from the actual implementation, there is still some gap because reaching out these private sector to the island nations. That's like one of the aspects. So that bridging the gap, that's what as a consultant or as advisor we do.
And Dipti, how has been your experience? I mean, I'll put it like as in with you talked about communities. So do you also engage actively with the governments to also point out and help them with some policies?
Yeah, I guess what Naveen said is true there, where you kind of do act as the middle person there to kind of make sure that you are kind of gathering information with these consultations I spoke about, or you're kind of assessing what needs are, like who are the most vulnerable, like what issues have been raised, and kind of delivering it back to, say, the climate change department, for example, in the government, and ensuring that those are kind of transferred through there in case it doesn't get to them another. So we're kind of like the bridge, as you said. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we've started late, but I think we don't want to delay the next session, so we've got to close shortly. But it's coming down to the last question for each of you guys is like, what is your expectation for this COP? What would you consider as success within your own spheres, right? So let's say, Ian, from a policy angle, what do you want, at the end on the 12th of December, where do you want to end in terms of policy at the COP? Or what do you expect to see at the COP as a whole?
I am not sure yet, but I believe from what we've expected, like since yesterday, coming on today, I think there'll be a lot of changes and there'll be a lot of funding opportunities as we can see. So I'm hopeful that by the end of this COP, there will be some positive outcome from it, just apart from other COPs that I've attended. Thank you.
Thank you. Dipti, this is your first COP, right?
Yes, it is.
And so can you just say how you're feeling and what is your hope towards addressing the very issue that you actually take care of? So what's your wish?
So how am I feeling? It's overwhelming, to be very frank, but it's so exciting to see, as you said, there's so many possibilities, so many things could change, so many things are happening, and I think that's just very exciting. That's going to have a positive outcome because of the amount of talks that are happening, and changes that want to be made. And I guess my hope is that I want to continue. I know this is still been happening, but continue moving towards where gender equality and social inclusion is not an afterthought, but is something that is very kind of integral to the process of achieving climate action through gender equality and social inclusion. Yes.
Thank you. And Naveen, your thoughts on where you would like this COP to end, like in terms of a consultant or a project developer?
So, like Ian mentioned, it's really difficult and it's too early to say. But the positive outcomes, which is it's already initiated commitment on LND. So, yeah, that's like one of the other area very near dear to all Pacific Island countries looking into the loss and damages. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm looking, more investment into the island countries, be it from the market-based mechanism, non-market-based mechanism, 6.2, 6.4, or other voluntary mechanisms. So that would be, I'll be looking for that. Thank you.
No, thank you. That's more or less it. So, any question and answers? I mean, otherwise, any questions?
Yes, I have a question. What do Pacific Islands, oh, sorry, can I go again? Yes, so what do Pacific Islands need or hope to get from wealthy governments regarding Article 6 at this COP, Article 6 carbon markets?
Ian, do you want to take that one?
Thank you. For Article 6, currently we engage with the Swiss government, as you know. We've got an agreement that is with both, and at the moment we're just working alongside what we've been agreed for. And we're hopeful that this COP, we're planning to meet with the Swiss just to go much more from there based on whatever activities we've been engaged in and whatever needs to whatever that needs still to be done, and just to get more out of it in terms of the pricing, in terms of arrangement that we have at the moment. This is what we one of our aim to do with this COP, to meet with the Swiss government on that. Apart from that, any 6.4, we haven't got any engagement yet. We don't know, still there's none. But for 6.2, this is what we're planning on to. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Anybody else? I see. So thank you, everyone, and thank you very much, Deputy Ian, and we look forward to the next COP proceedings. Thank you.